And welcome to Question Time. This from Maureen Kennedy, please.
After serving his sentence for rape, should footballer Ched Evans be given a chance to continue with his career?
And the news today, of course, was that though he was about to be signed, the football team decided not to because of public opinion. So, and at the same time, he has now apologised, which many people would seem to be calling for before, with a statement saying, "I wholeheartedly apologise for the effects that night in Rill has had on many people, at least the woman, not least the woman concerned." Liz Kendall.
I was appalled, really, that Oldham was even considering taking him on. Actually, he's a convicted rapist, and you know, I think that this is a high-profile job, a highly paid job. It is a job that has, you know, a role model for young men, and I think that that was, you know, I was appalled by it, and so I'm glad that they've taken a different decision. And I'm also really disappointed. I think the FA should have taken, have said something about this and taken a much stronger role. I think there is still far too much of a kind of casual attitude about rape and violence against women. We shouldn't forget, only 7% of reported rapes end up in a conviction. And I think that this attitude has got to change, and I'm glad that they've taken the decision that they have, because I think it would have been wrong.
So so it's not enough to serve 2.5 years. He should lose his job.
Well, actually, there's a whole other issue about whether 2.5 years
no,
for
but he
convicted
has served
rape
2.5 years. It's not
is
the
wrong.
debate.
Now, I believe that people who've committed crimes should, you know, have a second chance and a chance for rehabilitation, but not in this high-profile, highly paid, highly remunerated, respected role.
Julia?
At the risk of being drummed out of the sisterhood, I couldn't disagree more. There are three issues here. One is, should someone convicted of a serious crime be allowed to go into employment afterwards, after they're released from prison? It seems to me the obvious exception of jobs where trust and safety is involved, so care homes, teachers, doctors, lawyers, accountants, then actually the answer is yes. Ched Evans' sentence was, although he only served 2.5 years, was 5 years behind bars, not a lifetime of unemployment. The second issue seems to be that, well, it's a well-paid, high-profile job, and therefore he shouldn't be allowed to carry on doing that. Well, unfortunately, that is his job. It's probably the only thing he can do other than shacking shelves at Poundland, and he's got an entitlement in a free country to ply his trade. And bearing in mind that a number of other footballers have actually returned to work after doing things like killing people through dangerous driving, racism and other sex offences. The other question is whether or not, if he apologised and if he said what he did was wrong and he showed remorse and didn't just say he was sorry for the effects of the events of that night, then he would have done the correct sort of Oprah Winfrey style apology, and therefore he'd be allowed to return to work. But he doesn't believe he committed a crime. And I have to say, having looked at the case in great detail, and again, sorry sisterhood, but let's say the truth, if I was on that jury, on what I have read in a lot of detail of that case and the appeals, I would not have convicted him. I think that if we're going to go around convicting drunk men for having drunken sex with drunk women who don't remember, we are going to be imprisoning a hell of a lot of young men. And I think we are in a situation where we need to face up to the fact that we have a low rate of conviction for rape, because a lot of these situations are, just like this, a he said, a she said, and in the event of doubt, we cannot convict. I think this is the rule of the mob, and he should be allowed to return to work, and he should be allowed to get on with his life.
Just not there at the back.
You say Oldham shouldn't have employed him, but as Julie just said, he denies that this rape ever took place. But also, you say that what he did is bad. You look at the people who didn't want Oldham to sign him. They've threatened Oldham's staff. They've threatened the families of staff who work there, saying that they know where they live. They're going to go and rape their 5-year-old children. Surely that's worse than what he did, something he denies. And if he apologises, then surely that's showing that he's guilty.
No, he hasn't apologised for raping.
He apologised for the effect that it's had. But if he apologised for the rape, which is what everyone wants him to do, isn't that showing that he's guilty?
Liz, just come back on that, because he is added a statement tonight complaining of mob rule tactics that led to him not getting his job back, which comes to the point that she was...
But I also understand that the victim, the woman involved, has also faced threats of violence, which is completely unacceptable. And whatever either Julia or others of the audience think about what they've read about the trial, a jury convicted him.
All right. David Davis.
Before I answer the substantive question, I do disagree with people demanding an apology from him, because at the moment his case is going through a criminal review. And I think there is an issue there that you demand people sort of confess and apologise when the case is still subject to a review, which appears to be. It's the CCRB, whatever they call it. So that's by the by. The issue in terms of the case, I started off really in Julia's position. I start off with a presumption, when somebody's committed a criminal offence, whatever it is, including murder, once they've served their sentence, that's it. But then I thought a bit longer about it, and actually, of course, that's not true for an awful lot of offences. I mean, for example, if you commit a fraud, it'd be pretty hard to go back to a job as a lawyer or an accountant. Frankly, if you commit a number of offences, it's quite hard to go back to a job as a doctor. And if you commit a sex offence, it's pretty hard to go back to a public arena job at all, where you are a role model. I mean, it's very hard to imagine somebody who'd been convicted of rape going back to be an MP, for example, be a broadcaster. And so there is a big dimension to this, and I'm afraid at the end of the day, there are some offences that do destroy careers, and they destroy careers for a reason. And I think this is one of those. So I started out from Julia's position, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought, actually, it's harsh, but it's necessary. And I'm afraid I don't think he should appear in the public arena ever again, unless he's exonerated.
You, sir.
I think the comment by Julia is nonsensical. We have an independent, I agree with David Davis, we have an independent judicial system, which is a competent judicial system. What you're suggesting is actually trial by media. You say that you wouldn't have convicted him. That's an absolute nonsense. We need to respect our independent judiciary. Actually, what we need, I agree with David Davis, what we need is actually a rule, similar to governing bodies for solicitors and other professions. There needs to be a consistent policy for the FA to come out and say that those convicted of serious offences should not be allowed to return to the profession as a footballer.
All right.
And of course, the reason it isn't the case is there's too much money in it. You can get struck off as a doctor, you can get struck off as a lawyer. I don't think anybody's ever been struck off as a footballer.
Right. There were a number of people with hands up who feel he should be allowed to go back to football. Can I hear from one of them? No, there was a man in the front here. No, you, sir? No? You, sir, yes.
I was going to use the example of the footballer who killed while driving, killed 2 people, and he's back playing football. Now, surely that, however you look at it, killing people is worse than raping someone.
Can I just come back on that? But that is why I think we do need to see some action from the FA on this, because they are the governing body.
Retrospectively.
But as a governing body, I think that they need to set some guidelines for this, and I'm disappointed that they haven't done anything about that. And that's
the man at the very
what should
back
happen.
there on the gangway.
I'm a season ticket holder at a Premier League football club and have 2 young children who I'd like to take to see that football club play in the future, and I'd find it very difficult to convince them that it's right that they should be cheering on someone who's committed the crime that Ched Evans has been found guilty of committing. Jimmy Wells.
Yeah, I mean, I would say as a consumer, as a viewer, I would stop supporting a team if they hired someone like this. And I also think, yeah, it's a shame if your career is ruined because you've been convicted of some horrible crime. It's not that big a shame if you committed rape. I'm not really that bothered by it. I will say, of course, it's how long will it take? Another year until the judicial review is done. If his name is cleared at that time,
It's all different.
It's very different, right? But I think we've got to wait. There's no rush here. I mean, maybe for him there's a rush. As
the woman there.
Sell-by date's coming.
No, behind you.
Me.
Yes, you.
Sorry. What I don't understand is, so is it then okay for him to have a job in Sainsbury's? So is it all right for people in Sainsbury's who work in Sainsbury's to be around a rapist because they earn less money? Does that mean it's all right for them to be around it? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, what I would
There's
say
this and is it our place to take justice into our own hands? We have, not that I think the justice system is very good because it doesn't rehabilitate people at all, just makes them have a really crap time. Is it our place to put justice? Is it our place to take justice into our own hands?
His punishment was, I accept the jury's verdict, by the way, to the gentleman who said that earlier. I'm saying that on what I've read, reading through the appeals and all of I consider it to be a logical impossibility for the lady to have been not drunk enough to consent to sex with the first footballer and 5 minutes later too drunk to consent to sex the second. I think it's a logical impossibility for one to be guilty and the other to be not guilty. But the point is, why do we think that footballers are role models? Why do we think that because someone can kick a ball around that they have some sort of moral
but then
role
why
in
is it
our
all right for them
society?
to go and work somewhere else? Why is it all right?
Hold on, let's hear from the member of the audience again. Yes. Go on.
Me?
No, you were
Oh, me?
Yes.
Sorry.
Go on,
No,
finish
but
the
why
point.
is it okay for them to get a different job? Or why do we take it into our own hands, what job they get, who they work with, whatever? If we have a justice system, then we just have to put that into their hands because we as, like the public, that's not our job. We have people that do it for us.
Vince Cable.
Well, the audience has obviously got very mixed feelings about this, and I agree with David. I have too. I mean, some of us remember the days of capital punishment, and there were people who protested their innocence, having been found guilty by a jury, and were executed and were subsequently found to be innocent. So we need to be very, very careful about just accepting as the final word something that's come through a court. But I think in this particular case, I mean, there are so many factors around it. I mean, this gentleman hasn't actually served his sentence. He's on licence. He has sort of apologised, rather in a qualified way, this afternoon. There is the issue, and there is the issue that Liz raised, which is quite right, that the victim has been treated in an utterly appalling way by this man's fan club. So I think when you look at all those factors together, I do come down on the view that he shouldn't be treated leniently in this case. But how do you deal with it in the general sense? I think the answer has been, several people on the panel have made, is that you treat the Football Association in the same way that you treat the medical profession, the teaching profession elsewhere. They should have standards, and those standards should be observed, and there are offences, and it could be rape, it could be killing somebody when you're drunk, which disqualify you from future practising your profession, because footballers are not just icons, they're not just in the public eye, they're enormously well paid, next to bankers. So let's have professional standards and professional discipline.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Why does it make it okay for them to go and get a less paid job? So the people who get less money, is it all right? Oh, it's all right for them to be around a rapist. You know, because they get less money, that means that they should be around, you know, people that do hurt people.
The issue here is about...
Yeah, about it being idolised. I understand that.
It is, and that
but then I still don't understand why a lower job...
Are you worried about the casual attitude about violence towards women in many different forms?
Yes,
because
I am, but
really
But she's saying, what jobs could he take,
No.
which isn't going to put him...
I'm saying that this
hold
is
on,
sorry.
answer her
Yes,
question. She's saying, as I understand it, that if he is convicted, loses his appeal, what job should he be allowed to do? If he can't be a footballer, why should he be allowed to go and work at Sainsbury's as a convicted
He
rapist?
could be an MP.
Exactly.
He could be in the House of Lords. That would be perfectly fine if he was a hereditary peer, or you know, that would be fine.
Yeah, but let's take the more simple point. Why should he be allowed to work anywhere? And what should he be allowed to do, in your view?
Well, I think that this is not an issue about, you know, that it's all right for people on low pay to be around rapists or not. This is a point about this man would be a role model for young men, giving a message that you can still have the life and the profile and the success and all the adulation, even though you have committed a crime and can be convicted by a jury. And I think that is an additional issue to take into consideration.
Okay, I think we'll move on in a moment. Let's take the man with the striped pullover on there, at the back. Second row from the back. Yes.
I understand teachers and doctors, they have a position where the public trust them. Whereas footballers, they are footballers. They're just sports people. No one trusts them. No responsibility. No one depends on them.
But people do still look up to them, don't they?
They're on the media, but I don't think that's why they've gone into football. When doctors go into their profession, they go in there to, you know, to treat people, and they have trust of children, elderly, everyone. Whereas footballers are just there to play footballer. It's the media that gives them that platform. The media should be looked into. Why are they giving this guy so much of a platform?
Oh, right, okay. And a last point from you, sir,
I think the one thing you've got to take into consideration was that if Rolf Harris wants to come back to TV, taking your point, you're saying then that Rolf Harris should be allowed to come back to television and broadcast, even though he's been convicted as a paedophile.
If someone wanted to watch him, then I suppose that might happen, but I don't think anyone wants to watch him.
Yeah,
And
but
that's a
then why
different
would somebody?
argument,
Yeah,
isn't
but why would somebody? You're saying rape is something that is not that bad.
No, I'm not.
In the fact that
categorically not saying that.
Yeah, but what you're saying is that you can say that I can watch a footballer and my children can idolise a footballer who's raped a woman, who's legally been arrested and charged for rape. So on that same argument, I could say that my children, or the BBC, whoever wants to, could employ Rolf Harris and have the same person on television.
The reality is, through most of the 70s, 80s and 90s, we were watching rapists and paedophiles on our television screens half of the bloody time. Now we know who they are, and a lot of them have gone behind bars.
A last point from the woman in the third row there, in the spotted dress. Yes. What about the two of you? Yeah, go on.
I was just going to...
You start, and then you carry on, and then we'll move on.
Okay. I was just going to kind of agree with most of you, really. I actually think that it's, particularly back to what Julia was saying, I think it's a matter of demand. I think I'm not forgiving what he did whatsoever, but I honestly think that if a brain surgeon had done exactly the same thing, a brain surgeon is heavily in demand, and he wouldn't necessarily be allowed to come back to work, but you need a brain surgeon. I'm not saying you don't need a footballer, but I think that's part of the reason a brain surgeon would be in demand. You need a brain surgeon. You don't necessarily need.
All right, and the woman on your right.
I just think what Julia said is kind of awful. Like, she's mentioned that conviction rates for rape are at 7%, and this person has been actually convicted guilty, and you're saying publicly you don't believe her, and that is why people don't come forward, and that is why people don't get convicted, right?
The jury didn't believe her. The jury found one of her claims of rape to be untrue.
He got convicted guilty. He's one of the 7%.
One of the two defendants she claimed raped her. She has no memory of the incident, by the way. She doesn't know whether she was. The whole case rests on the fact that she doesn't remember anything, and that she was in no position to give consent or not give consent. We have no idea.
The woman on my right here. Yes.
Essentially, the difference between Ched Evans and a brain surgeon or someone that works in Sainsbury's is that young people are going to have posters of this man all over their walls, and this is a person that has committed a serious crime, and this is being considered okay, and it's not.
Okay. I think we'll move on. Thank you very much.